There she is. Hello, how are you?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
I can. Wonderful to see you, everybody. Vanessa Beeley, are you in Damascus this morning?
I am, yes, having had very little sleep because Israel decided to bomb us at exactly midnight last night for the second day running.
Vanessa, I was just saying before you came on, just sort of to reiterate what you and I were saying, and that is the moment you mention Israel, it's an incredibly emotive topic. You get accused of all manner of things. Of course, we're grown-ups around here, so we don't mind that kind of stuff. We can take that. But quite seriously, Vanessa, what on earth is going on? Because that was bombing this week, right? So there were soldiers wounded earlier this week after a missile attack, right? And then you've had another airstrike during the night. Why is this continue? This is so many years now. What on earth is this about, really?
Well, I mean, this is about Israel being part of the cartel that has been trying to destabilize Syria since 2011, but I would say even for the last 75 years.
75.
Yes, since Syria's independence from the French Mandate in 1946, CIA and MI6 have run black ops and clandestine military operations and regime change operations in Syria, culminating in pre-2011 when Britain was instrumental in planning the military insurgents, of course dominated by groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS, backed, sponsored, armed and equipped by the West, including the UK and the US. And Israel has always been part of this cartel. Why? Because Syria has been one of the most steadfast supporters of Palestinian independence and has, of course, also supported the resistance axis, which includes Iran and Hezbollah and the Hashd al-Shabi groups, which are claimed to be Iranian proxies, but are actually a secular military group that has been instrumental in pushing back against ISIS in Iraq, and is at the moment instrumental in defending the one border that is open, border crossing, that is open between Iraq and Syria, and is allowing humanitarian convoys to enter Syria pre and after the earthquake tragedy. And those convoys have, of course, regularly been bombed by Israel. This is unusual because this is the second consecutive attack. So we were attacked the night before, and that hit basically residential areas again in Kafr Sousse and Medan, which are heavily, densely populated areas of Damascus, under the pretext, of course, that they're targeting Iranian military. But the fact is, under international law, Syria has a historic treaty, defense treaty with Iran. It has the right as a sovereign nation to decide upon its partnership, both military and economic. No other country has the right to dictate to Syria. And of course, that's what this war is about. Syria turned down the Western-backed Qatari pipeline, which was proposed in 2000, in favor of the Iranian pipeline, which of course is supported by Russia. So that was the complete final straw for the West, plus the fact that Bashar al-Assad didn't come into line. He refused to abandon Palestinian freedom. He refused to abandon Hezbollah. He refused to abandon his principles. And of course, for
Right,
the West, that's
right,
completely,
right.
that's a big no-no. Okay, then we'll do regime change because we don't agree with you, right? That's basically what it comes down to. And last night, I mean, actually, they hit an air defense station very close to me because
How
it was
scary.
incredibly loud. Well, the problem is where I live is to the west of Damascus, and I'm actually not far from the border with the occupied territories, occupied by Israel, and the border with the occupied territories. And so therefore, there are a number of air defense bases around me, most of them about three
Right,
kilometers away.
right.
And so when they're targeting, and this is the fact, they're not targeting Syrian offensive capability. And even if they were, that would violate international law because we're not at war with Israel.
Right.
But what they're doing is trying to wipe out Syrian defense capability, which is, what's clear is Netanyahu needs war. Now he has to decide who he has war with.
Right.
Right?
Quite a selection, quite a smorgasbord he's got to choose from.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, he has now effectively on the verge of a civil war within the Israeli occupation territory itself, right? And so what will these, let's say, supremacist leaders always try and do is to distract from internal strife, or internal strife.
And he's got plenty of internal strife going on, which we'll talk about. But let me just ask you, it's Ramadan. Do they not let up even for Ramadan, or is it just of no consequence?
Oh, no. I mean, Ramadan is the perfect opportunity because everyone is relatively occupied or even, you know, physically not as prepared as they normally would be.
Oh, that's so
fasting during the day.
Right.
Well, I mean, they bombed Syria 3 times after the earthquake, even before these last 2 attacks. So last night and the night before. And the incredible thing is, I mean, they must be desperate to destroy something because the weather was not optimum last night. We had snowstorms here. We had heavy cloud cover. We had high winds. Now they fired the missiles from, I think, from warplanes above the Golan occupied territories. So very close again to the Syrian airspace.
Yes.
And in the past, they've also used Al Tanf. Al Tanf is the American military base in the southeast of Syria, illegally, of course, in the southeast of Syria, where they're training groups like Al Qaeda and ISIS and recruiting them and arming them. And Israel will use that airspace to carry out attacks. So it's effectively Syrian territory, Syrian airspace, but under the control of the US. And also the other thing is there's been an exchange of fire in the northeast, where the US is occupying Syrian oil and stealing their resources. 80% of Syrian oil goes into Iraq, to the military bases there. And they're also stealing wheat. Some of the oil also goes to Al Qaeda for refining and selling on into Turkey. So all of the US proxies inside Syria, ISIS, Al Qaeda, the Kurdish separatists, benefit from the oil revenue that should be coming to Syrians and should be providing electricity and fuel and heating, but it hasn't since the US has occupied that area. And there has actually been sort of a resistance campaign, or an increased resistance campaign, comprising Syrian forces, Iranian forces, Hashd al-Shaabi, which is the Iraqi militia that I was talking about, have carried out rocket attacks against US bases, military bases. And a number of US contractors, quite possibly CIA, were killed and injured. And I think up to 8 military personnel have suffered traumatic brain disorder from whatever weapons the drone was using. And so the US has retaliated and carried out attacks against Syrian positions in Syria, when the US is illegally and criminally inside Syria and is reinforcing ISIS in the northeast.
Shocking.
Carry out attacks against.
Literally shocking. It's absolutely insane. I mean, what is the end game to all this? There has to be an end game.
Well, yeah, I mean, basically the end game is to weaken or to completely eradicate Russian influence in Syria, to make Syria too much of an unstable quagmire for Russia to stay. Because Syria, if people look at the 5 Seas project of President Assad back in 2004, you will understand that the project with Russia and with China and with all the enemies of the West was to create really a multipolar world, with Syria as the hub for energy resources, trade, food resources, agricultural resources, and from Syria it would fan out into Europe and globally. So it was the first really major south-to-south trade and energy vision that Assad started, right? And of course, this is not to be allowed in a world of US unipolar supremacy, right?
Right.
And so the number one agenda is to get rid of Russia, particularly for the UK. The UK has a particularly vindictive campaign against Russia and against Syria because of its history in the Middle East.
Very long time. Very long time. We grew up, Russians were always the bogeymen when I was a child. This has been going on a long time.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, to completely destabilize Syria and to put it in the hands of an Islamist regime that is effectively, or has been, funded and armed by Israel. So Israel, you know, people assume that if a Muslim Brotherhood regime were to be put in place in Syria, it would be dangerous for Israel, but it's completely wrong. The Muslim Brotherhood has been instrumental in destabilizing the region on behalf of Israel and the West, basically.
Yeah.
So that's what Israel wants. And for the security of what is the military outpost for the West in the Middle East, which is Israel, they want to destabilize the Syrian government. And of course, the Syrian government was financially independent. It wasn't tied into the World Bank. It wasn't.
So it can't be compromised in the same way.
Exactly.
Oh, exactly. Good Lord. There's too many rebellious streaks going on there, not complying. But the thing is that you're absolutely right, is that obviously they need to distract from what is going on home territory in Israel right now. Now, Netanyahu is going through hell, isn't he? There's a proper uprising taking place there. They want him out. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, this has been going on for 16 weeks. I mean, this didn't start with the sacking of the defense minister, Yoav Gallant. Now, Gallant is not some kind of, white knight on a charger. I mean, Gallant was a naval admiral. He was in charge of Operation Cast Lead in 2009 that massacred more than 1,500 Palestinians, right? And when white phosphorus was used and so on, and multiple human rights atrocities were committed by Israeli forces against the inhabitants of Gaza. And Gaza, of course, is a strip of land the size of the Isle of Wight with 2 million inhabitants, completely imprisoned, an open-air prison, imprisoned on all sides. I mean, I've spent time there. Eva Bartlett, my colleague, has lived there considerably more than me and was there during Operation Cast Lead. And so the protests have been effectively against Netanyahu's attempt to cover his own backside, basically, because, of course, he's under charge of corruption. So what is he trying to do now that he's been re-elected under sort of very suspicious circumstances where he called a re-election because he didn't like the results? And he's trying to bring in this judicial reform, which effectively means that the Prime Minister has a say in the election of judges to the judiciary. And it then also means that Parliament, with a simple majority vote, can overrule decisions of the judiciary. So, I mean, not only is this an erosion of the mirage of Israel being the only democracy in the Middle East, but it's also effectively putting in place protection for corruption and criminality amongst the leadership in Israel. But the other important thing to note is that Netanyahu came to power, and among his campaign promises were, one, to send arms to Ukraine, two, to support the demonstrations in Iran, the so-called women's rights protests that are effectively totally being weaponized by the West against the Iranian government. Yeah, like we know by now after Afghanistan, and Syria and Libya.
One of the reasons I really enjoy talking to you, apart from the fact you're a very lovely person, but it's a completely counter narrative to what we hear. So I did an experiment this morning. I went through all of the mainstream stations to see who had reported on this bombing. And of course, all you get is like Al Jazeera. You don't get Sky or BBC. Literally, they don't. This must have been incredibly hard for you because you have walked the talk. So you went out there, you've been in the region, what, 7-8 years now?
Yeah, well, I've been coming since 2016, so 7 years, and I'm living here. This is my 4th year.
So you mustn't, you can't recognize the narrative that is trotted. You can't do.
No, I mean, what they tend to do, of course, I mean, Israel has put out a report saying Syria claims that Israel bombed Damascus. Well,
that's right, claimed.
Yeah. And what the BBC and the Guardian and others tend to do, of course, is to repeat the trope, the Israeli trope that, oh yeah, but Israel has the right to preemptive self-defense by targeting Iranian military, because of course Iranian military is totally focused on targeting Israel and not on targeting the terrorist groups that have been unleashed on Syria by Israel and the West. You know, this is it. There's never any context. There's just a repetition, but the BBC has never been anything more than a spokesperson for Israel.
No, exactly.
That's a well-known fact.
Exactly. It's devastating though, because when you report back to me and just say that they did it again last night, I feel that just feels so utterly wrong, because the world literally watches and does nothing. Yeah. And I just find that astonishing. Is the world so captured?
Yes. Basically. You know, and the thing is that just coming back to Netanyahu, because what is interesting with him is his connection to Ukraine. Because many people are sort of saying, oh, maybe this is a color revolution because he's fallen out with Biden, because actually Netanyahu prefers Trump, etc., etc. But look at Netanyahu. Netanyahu is a revisionist Zionist. Now, the revisionist Zionists actually are followers of Ze'ev Jabotinsky, who in the 1820s collaborated with the Nazi president of Ukraine, Simon Petlura, against Russia. So in other words, this branch of Zionism is quite happy to collaborate with Nazi extremism against what they perceive to be the common threat of Russia. And secondly, it's about territorial maximalism. So revisionist Zionism means effectively the appropriation of territory in Jordan, in other words, the Greater Israel Plan. And so this is why Netanyahu previously was viewed very much as a moderate, but actually now that he's come into power at this stage in US operations against Russia, or NATO operations against Russia and Ukraine, the continued operations against Syria, for me, it makes perfect sense what he's doing right now. Look at his finance minister, Smotrich, who 2 weeks ago in Paris stated that Palestinians don't actually exist as a people. And he talked about Transjordan. He talked about actually extending territory to Damascus. So, you know, it's very clear. Netanyahu has aligned himself with the far right of the far right, and the most extremist branches of Zionism, which means expansionism, which means taking Syrian territory. And we know that since 2011, Israel has had the plan to basically annex southern territory, not only Golan Heights. Yeah, go on, sorry.
Sorry, no, just it's absolutely obscene land grabs going on. Drumstick says, is Syria now controlled by the World Bank?
No.
No, Drumstick.
No, not at all.
Absolutely not. But you know the thing, well, and that's why exactly why we want to hear it from you, because you hear all these things, don't you? Oh, they've been taken over now, and all of that. So look, Vanessa, thank you for joining us. Always greatly appreciate. I literally just feel what you have to say is so insightful, and it's so vital to hear you, everybody. Vanessa Beeley, excellent work. Take good care of yourself. Have a good weekend. God bless you. She's brilliant, isn't she? Yes, she's brilliant, people. Yes, I appreciate that. Yes, very much. Very much. Yes, take care.